The Empire had conquered over 300 worlds across the galaxy. Their warships blocked out stars, their soldiers numbered in the trillions. For 10,000 years, no species had ever stood against them and survived. When their scout ships discovered Earth, a small blue planet spinning at the edge of an unremarkable solar system, they expected another easy conquest. The humans living there had only recently learned to travel between planets. Their weapons were primitive. Their ships were slow. The High Command predicted the conquest would take 7 standard days. They were wrong. Admiral commanded the invasion fleet. He was an old warrior who had crushed rebellions on dozens of worlds. He had never known defeat. When his fleet of 2,000 warships arrived in Earth's orbit, he broadcast his demands across every human communication channel. Surrender immediately. Hand over all resources. Accept slavery. Those who resisted would be destroyed. He gave humanity 12 hours to respond. The response came in 8 hours. Every nation on Earth, despite their differences, despite their histories of conflict, sent the same message. The words were simple. We will not surrender. We will fight. If you want our world, come and take it. Admiral found this amusing. He had heard defiance before. Every species spoke brave words until the bombardment began. He ordered his ships to destroy the major cities as a demonstration of power. His weapons officers targeted New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo. The plasma cannons fired. Nothing happened. The weapons struck invisible barriers that surrounded each city. Human scientists had developed shield technology in secret, knowing that threats from space were possible. The shields held. The fleet fired again and again. The shields flickered but did not fall. For the first time in his long career, Admiral felt uncertainty. He ordered ground troops to land and capture the shield generators. 50,000 soldiers descended upon the planet in drop ships. They expected terrified civilians running in panic. They expected weak resistance from primitive armies. Instead, they found hell. The humans had prepared. Every building was a fortress. Every street was a trap. Human soldiers did not fight like any species that had faced before. They did not stand in formation. They did not retreat when outnumbered. They hid in shadows and struck without warning. They sacrificed themselves to destroy enemy positions. They kept fighting even when wounded, even when dying. In the first battle for Chicago, 10,000 soldiers landed with advanced weapons and armored vehicles. By sunset, only 2,000 remained alive. The humans had lost 5 times that number, but more kept coming. Civilians picked up weapons from fallen soldiers, both human and alien. Old men and women joined the fight. Teenagers fought alongside trained warriors. They had never seen anything like it. General led the ground forces. He reported to Admiral with growing concern in his voice. "These humans are insane," he said. "They do not value their own lives. They throw themselves at our positions knowing they will die. For everyone we kill, 3 more appear. They fight in the darkness. They fight in the rain. They do not sleep. They do not stop." Admiral ordered more troops. 100,000 soldiers landed across the planet. The fighting only grew more intense. Human resistance groups coordinated through hidden networks. They struck supply lines. They ambushed patrols. They captured weapons and learned to use them within hours. Alien technology that had taken other species generations to understand was being turned against its makers in days. The war that was supposed to last 7 days stretched into weeks. The weeks became months. The Empire poured resources into Earth. More ships arrived. More soldiers landed. And still, humanity refused to surrender. In the mountains of Afghanistan, human fighters who had spent generations fighting each other now fought side by side against the alien invaders. In the jungles of Vietnam, guerrilla tactics perfected over centuries trapped and destroyed entire battalions. In the frozen lands of Russia, the aliens learned why so many armies throughout human history had died in the cold. The humans used everything. Their knowledge of their own planet became a weapon more deadly than any gun. The soldiers began to fear the night. Humans could see in darkness almost as well as in light. Their eyes adapted. Their other senses compensated. Stories spread through the alien ranks about human soldiers appearing from nowhere, killing without sound and vanishing like ghosts. Morale crumbled. For the first time ever, soldiers deserted their posts. Admiral grew desperate. He ordered the use of chemical weapons, biological agents designed to kill humans quickly. The humans had prepared for this too. They had suits, underground bunkers, medical countermeasures. The weapons killed many, but not enough. The survivors fought with even greater fury, fueled by rage at the atrocity. The war entered its second year. The Empire had never fought a campaign this long against a single world. Resources that should have conquered 100 planets were being consumed by one. Other conquered species across the galaxy watched with growing hope. If these humans could resist, perhaps freedom was possible. Rebellions began on distant worlds. Species that had been slaves for centuries saw humanity's example and found their courage. The Empire suddenly faced threats on multiple fronts. Ships that should have been sent to Earth were diverted to crush uprisings elsewhere. The invasion force was weakened. Human scientists worked without rest. They studied captured technology and improved upon it. Within 18 months, humanity had built its own fleet of warships. They were smaller than the alien vessels, faster and more agile. Human pilots flew them with reckless bravery that terrified their enemies. They attacked the orbital fleet in suicide formations, sacrificing themselves to destroy ships 100 times their size. Commander led the first major space battle of the war. She was 29 years old, a former test pilot who had never imagined fighting aliens. Her squadron of 40 small fighters faced 200 warships. Logic said she should retreat. Instead, she led her pilots directly into the enemy formation. "They expect us to be afraid," she told her squadron. "Show them what fear really looks like." The battle lasted 6 hours, lost 32 pilots, but they destroyed 47 warships before retreating. The aliens learned that space was no longer safe. Admiral received troubling news from home. The High Council was growing impatient. The cost of this war was becoming unacceptable. Other worlds watched humanity's resistance and grew bold. The Empire was losing control. "Withdraw," the Council ordered. "This planet is not worth the price." But Admiral refused. His pride would not allow him to admit defeat against such primitive creatures. He committed every remaining ship to one final assault. If he could break Earth's defenses and kill enough humans, the rest would surely surrender. He gathered his fleet of 800 remaining warships and prepared the largest bombardment in history. The humans detected the approaching fleet. They knew what was coming. Every surviving human ship rose to meet the enemy. Every ground-based weapon pointed at the sky. Every man, woman, and child who could fight prepared for the final battle. President addressed humanity through every remaining communication system. His voice was calm, steady, and unafraid. "They thought we would break," he said. "They thought fear would defeat us. They were wrong. We are humanity. We have survived ice ages and plagues. We have survived wars against ourselves. We will survive this. Today, we do not fight for victory. We fight because surrender is not in our nature. Whatever happens, let history remember that we stood. Let the galaxy know that Earth never knelt." The battle began at dawn, measured by Earth's rotation. Warships descended through the atmosphere, their weapons blazing. Human ships rose to meet them. The sky burned with explosions and plasma fire. Cities crumbled. Mountains shattered. Millions died in the first hour alone. But the humans held. For every ship they lost, they destroyed 2 enemy vessels. Ground forces repelled landing parties with desperate fury. Pilots flew their damaged craft directly into enemy engines. Soldiers stood their ground until their last breath. Admiral watched from his flagship as his fleet diminished. His greatest weapons could not break these humans. His mightiest warriors could not crush their spirit. For the first time in his life, he understood that he was losing. The battle lasted 3 days. When the smoke finally cleared, the invasion fleet had been reduced to less than 200 ships. Admiral was dead, his flagship torn apart by human missiles. The surviving aliens retreated beyond the solar system, broken and humiliated. Humanity had lost billions. Cities were ruins. Entire regions had become wastelands. But they had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that had never known defeat, humanity had refused to surrender and made the invaders pay for every inch of ground. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Enslaved species saw proof that the Empire was not invincible. Rebellions. Within 5 years, the Empire collapsed entirely, brought down by the courage of species it had oppressed for, courage inspired by one small planet that refused to kneel. Humanity rebuilt. They used the captured alien technology to spread beyond Earth, establishing colonies on distant worlds. They joined the new Galactic Alliance as founding members, respected and sometimes feared. Other species approached humans with caution, remembering what they had done against the. Historians would later call it the War of Human Defiance. It became a legend told across thousands of worlds. The story of a young species that should have been crushed, but instead chose to fight. The story of soldiers who charged into certain death so others might live. The story of ordinary people who became warriors because their home demanded it. And whenever anyone in the galaxy doubted whether a small group could stand against overwhelming power, they remembered Earth. They remembered the humans who looked at an undefeated empire and said, "We will not surrender." They remembered that sometimes the will to fight matters more than the odds of winning. They had expected slaves. They had found warriors. They had expected fear. They had found defiance. They had started a war expecting easy victory. They had discovered that some species cannot be conquered because surrender is simply not something they understand. Humanity had been tested by the fire of interstellar war. They had emerged burned but unbroken, and the galaxy learned a truth that would echo through the centuries. Never underestimate humans. Never corner them. Never give them a reason to fight with everything they have. Because when humans decide that they would rather die than submit, even empires fall. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter above the ruined cities of Earth, as if the universe itself acknowledged what these strange, stubborn, magnificent creatures had accomplished. They had refused to surrender, and in doing so, they had changed everything.